Hello, guys. Welcome to the Departure Lounge. My name is Mary Razemba, your host and coach with strategies for safe and legal migration. And today we're talking about prioritizing safety when we migrate. Now, I know that a lot of people don't talk about the dark side of migration, and this is the particularly the darkest part of migration, but understand that it does exist, and a lot of people experience it without knowing that they are being trafficked, without knowing what trafficking is, and worst of all, without knowing what they can do to get out of it. And that's why we're here. We're promoting awareness, we're talking about the strategies, and we're trying to figure out how we can go about it so that you migrate safe and you migrate to thrive and not just to survive. Now, I want to talk about um, this dark story, human trafficking, because a lot of consultations in all the meetings and sometimes the speaking engagements that I am given in my capacity as a coach and a consultant for African migrants, I get to meet and hear a lot of devastating stories about trafficking. And the most painful part is most of the times the victims are not aware. They have no idea what's going on. They don't even know it's a crime. They don't even know that it's not allowed. Do you know how painful it is? And sometimes people are even brainwashed to the extent that they think that's the only way. People get to a point where they're surrounded in this environment and they think that everybody, all immigrants, this is the path that we take. This is how we get into the country. But I want to share with you this information because I'm sure that it'll help somebody, it'll empower somebody. And if you know somebody who might be helped and and be empowered by this message, I suggest that you share this video, that you invite them to like my page, to get in touch. You can find also this video will be re-aired on my YouTube channel for you to keep on looking at. But in addition, we will be giving you a blog. My associates and I will be sharing with you a blog to help you guys when it comes to human trafficking. We need to prioritize awareness because only in being aware will we be able to fight and end human trafficking. So today's broadcast is unfortunately not live. When you guys watch this video, I will be at work. So, but I want to keep my commitment to you guys and bring you guys photos. And that's why we're doing this video a little bit different. What I really want you to do, though, is to save your comments. So send me your comments, send me your feedback. Let me know what you're thinking. Give me back your questions, and I will come back after this video. I pinky promise I will come back and I will have a look at it and I will answer the questions one by one. I promise. All right. So without a further ado, let's get into it. Once again, before we start, I want to thank my team. I have this amazing team, guys. I'm supported by a team of very talented Zimbabwean people, Digital Guru Zimbabwe, as well as our newly on board copywriter, Michelle. Thank you so much for the support, as well as our graphic designer, Gilda Chikodzore. Thank you so much. So, we're talking about how to prioritize safety. Now, there's three aspects about this. You know, migration is like a really interesting topic and it's so broad, and that's why we're doing this. But there's a really interesting dynamic to this. To trafficking. Really, there are actually three aspects. There is a possibility of being trafficked or recruited while you're still in your hometown, in your home country, and being moved overseas or even across borders as a trafficking victim. And I want to emphasize that the biggest, most of the time, people who are targeted by traffickers are people who are desperate, right? You're really desperate. You think anything will go, anything will do, right? Number one. People who are um, poor most of the time, because money is a big driving factor. Even you will find in the offers that are made by the traffickers. So money is a big driving factor. Women are at a higher risk than men, although that's not to say that men don't get trafficked. Men do get trafficked, but women are at a higher risk. And young people as well, especially across the board, young and older. Young people, because to be honest, we are a little bit naive when we're young. We believe the world is beautiful. It's all roses. It's all great. But I've said this before, um, the Western world can be a very scary place, and there's a lot of things that are unknown to you, especially when you grow up in a protected African environment, the way that we grow up. So you need to understand that if you are an immigrant coming out of Africa and you have this level of desperation, you are poor and you're looking for an opportunity, you need to be aware that there is always a risk that the offer or the opportunity that you're being given might be trafficking. But how do you tell if an offer is really trafficking or if it's not? Now, one thing is, most of the time, the offer is just way too good to be true. All right. It's sometimes ridiculously too good to be true. Understand that if, for example, somebody says to you, I'm inviting you to work as a nurse aide, and you're going to be getting a salary of 120,000 euros a year, then you need to think twice. There's things that you can do to protect yourself. First of all, the biggest one is research, guys. We have been given this beautiful and amazing medium, social media, which means that you're in a position to find out information about things and places that you've never been. Google, and you are also in the position to connect with people who are in those places that you've never been. So I'm talking about social media, and I'm talking about the internet. So what you want to do, first of all, is you need to research, guys. You need to research and make sure that when you're asking the questions, you're getting the right information. For example, like I mentioned in my example of somebody who is trying to be a nurse aide, you need to find out, and you can find this out online. You can contact even recruiters. You can contact human resources personnel in these countries and ask what is the average salary for somebody who is starting and who is traveling as who is coming on board and working as an nurse aide. And you can find this out. And once you have a bit of an idea what is the average salary. So if the salary is too good to be true, if the offer is way too good to be true, I have bad news for you. If it walks like a duck and if it talks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. So it's probably something that is false, that you want to raise some flags over. Number two, some romantic relationships. Now, guys, there are people who are claiming to love other people online, okay? And trust me, in this world, okay, I'm not saying that you can't find a relationship online, yes, but sometimes, like I said, it's too good to be true. It's not easy to just bring somebody over who you've never met or who you've only met in the space of two months, bring you over for a romantic relationship and start a relationship just like that. And trust me, the things that I'm saying to you are actually stories that I have heard, okay? Most of the time, it's not real. Most of the time it's not real, okay? Most of the time it's too good to be true. So you want to check out, what does the opportunity look like? What is it offering me? Is it realistic? Is it actually something that exists? Okay. Do people actually do this? And you can do your fact checking online. You can do your fact checking with people who are actually on the ground. Look for communities. That's a great idea. Look for communities. I know personally that there are groups on Facebook of Zimbabweans who are in Europe. There are groups on Facebook of Zimbabweans who are in South Africans who are in Europe, in Belgium, in Netherlands. And you can Google these groups and actually go into these groups and ask these questions, because at the end of the day, you want to prioritize your safety by making sure that the offer that you are receiving is an actual and valid offer. And that's very important. So that's your starting point. Okay, so we've talked about researching and that it has to be realistic. Okay, and if it's not realistic and if it's too good to be true, you might be being targeted for human trafficking. All right. Now, among the most vulnerable people I mentioned are young people, young women, young men, people from third world countries. Those are the most vulnerable. So you and me who come out of Zimbabwe and South Africa or Kenya or Uganda or Nigeria, we are very vulnerable. Our African people are very vulnerable. Another thing is, depending on where you're moving to or where this offer is language. So if somebody is offering you an amazing offer, okay, something that sounds too good to be true, you're going to make €1,000,000 when you move to Russia and you don't speak Russian, and they say there's no need for you to speak Russian. Ting, 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 bells. Okay, because if you're going to go to a foreign country, to a foreign environment, trust me, when you come into a foreign country and you can't read and you can't see, you go back to that point of illiteracy. You have no idea and no way of communicating your feelings, your thoughts, your ideas with the outside world. You just become a spectator of life and life just goes by you. Now imagine if you are vulnerable and you are being held captive and you can't speak the language and you can't communicate with anybody. And even if you called the police, you wouldn't be able to communicate what the problem is because nobody really speaks English. And that's the reality of Europe. And that's the biggest danger with migration, especially to countries where you don't speak the language. And I'm talking about the European zone in particular here. The United States in some places, because some places are Spanish speaking. It's very important for you, if you're going to go to a country, to realize that you're going to have to be able to communicate. Language is a key factor. And that's why even when I'm promoting my offers like Social Year in Germany, I insist that you don't just have basic German knowledge, you have to have at least a B1. A B1 means you can write, you can read, you can speak, you can communicate. Why? Because this is going to help you if you need something. This is going to help you communicate with the world around you. And even more so, if you're in trouble, you're going to need to be able to communicate that you are in trouble, that there is a problem. So offers of migration, offers to countries that are not English speaking and don't require you to speak the language, that's an alarm bell. That's an alarm signal right there. You need to be wary, because that's not going to go well. Okay? Right. Another thing is migrating with the wrong type of visa. Now, last week we talked about visas, and if you missed that episode, you can always watch it on YouTube. If you go to my channel, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube. But the reason why you need a specific visa when you're traveling, like I said last time, is because it creates the option to change your visa into a residence permit. Now, understand, if you didn't already know, that the visa is just a means of getting from one place to another. That's not the piece of document, the paperwork that will keep you in the country. All right. So if you have a legal visa that says 30 days stay, right? You need to look at the fine prints. Is it 30 days in one go, or is it 30 days in a particular set of days? But what I'm trying to get at, and why this is important when we're talking about trafficking, is If you migrate with the wrong type of visa that doesn't allow you to change it into a permit and you are stuck, you become desperate. And we said one of the reasons why people are targeted is when they are desperate, okay? And you don't want to be desperate. So make sure that you have the right documents. Please, I know I've heard this so many times and my hair stands every time I hear this. You are not Chuck Norris of paperwork, okay, of hustling, okay? So please, you're not going to just get any kind of visa, enter a country, and hustle your way through. That's a recipe for disaster. That'll only lead to problems and it'll make you vulnerable to human trafficking, because the only jobs that you will be eligible for are jobs that are most likely underpaying or illegal. And underpaying means you can fall into that point of slavery, which means you're working maybe 15 hours a day for something like 3 euros an hour, because there is no other choice. So you want to make sure that when you migrate, you're migrating from a position of an empowered position, which means having the right documentation for the purposes and the duration of stay that you intend to have. So you need to make sure that your starting point matches your ending point. Don't migrate with a tourist visa. Guys, I've said this a million times and I will never stop saying it. If you intend to go stay in a country, do not migrate with a tourist visa. They don't give residence permits for people who migrate with tourist visas. So you have to think about that. And all this goes back to the vulnerability. You don't want to be in a position where it's easy for people to manipulate you, because once you're there, then people start to give you these offers that sound too good to be true, or you're desperate and all you need is a place to stay or something to eat. And then they have you, then they've targeted you, then they've got you. Now understand that human trafficking has got three different faces. Ale, three. There are more faces, but there are three specific faces, which is prostitution. I've heard stories where women are forced, or they're under the guise of, this is my boyfriend, but the boyfriend locks them up in a house, and yeah, he lets his friends have his way. One day it's this friend, the next day it's this friend. Meanwhile, the guy is collecting the money. So prostitution is a big one. Slave labor. Slave labor, that's also a big one. And especially today, this one, I'm talking about those who migrate as au pairs. Please be very careful, be very conscious when you migrate using this option, because there are a lot of people who then exploit these girls and these young women and these young men to working very long hours, more than 40 hours a week, always being on standby, and little to no pay. Okay, so that's also the reason why I'm doing this, is because I hear a lot of stories from au pairs. Au pair is not an easy way to migrate, guys. And I've said it before. If you're looking for easy, then stay home, because life in the diaspora, life as an immigrant is never a walk in the park. And if anybody promises you that it's going to be easy breezy, yes, ting, 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 alarm bells, because you might find yourself in trouble. Right. So we've talked about most vulnerable groups. We're talking about most vulnerable groups, and I said the au pairs, but also people without a skill. And au pairs fall in this position, but anybody in general. If you are migrating and you do not have a particular skill, you have got no qualifications whatsoever, no paperwork to prove that you are qualified to do something, no degree, no work experience, no certification, then you are in a vulnerable position, because the work that you will be eligible to do is menial labor, and menial labor makes you vulnerable, not only because the payments are low, the documentation will be very difficult, because if you are unskilled and you don't really have a means of sustenance, it's going to be difficult to convert your documents to a residence permit, your visa to a residence permit. So you want to be wary when you're migrating as an unskilled person, that you are one of the people in the high risk categories. Other people with high risk status are, like I said, people who don't have the right documentation. So don't have family in that country, don't speak the language, don't have a skill, au pairs, very young people. These people are in the high risk category. So what I would advise then, if you are going to migrate as um, somebody in these higher risk, but in general, this I go through with all my coaching clients. In general, if you are going to migrate, you need a crisis plan. All right. Now, a crisis plan is an idea of, if you get into trouble, who are you going to reach out to? You need to have an idea of, where am I starting when I arrive in the country? What's my starting point? You need to understand that when you move to a new country, all your basic needs are going to start back at zero. So you're going to need to start building back up your basic needs, and basic needs are like food and shelter, employment, paperwork, connection, and family. You're going to need to start building this up again. So migration is actually a very traumatic process, and that's why it needs to be done right. But most importantly, to prevent that you fall weary to traffickers, you need to have a crisis plan. And part of the crisis plan is with the thing that I just mentioned before, about reaching out and making sure that you create a community. You reach out to a community, to the place where you are going. Find South Africans that are there, find Zimbabweans that are there, find Kenyans that are there already, and make those connections. Find out how they are surviving. What should you expect? Find people who you will be able to trust and run to if something is not going right. Okay. Make sure that you have always at least an extra phone. Okay. Especially if you are, let's say, an au pair. They will give you a phone, but make sure you have one of your own, okay, which you can keep in contact with your family. Let them know what's going on. And that's something also that's very important, an open and honest communication. I know that sometimes when we leave home, we feel like we can't talk about our problems anymore, okay? And that's difficult because everybody's looking out for you. The moment you get on a plane, people are like, "Oh, this one is gone. Their life is already better." You know, they get to Europe and they get to pluck money off the money trees in Europe. but but ask anybody, that's not actually the case. So you need to maintain some real connections with people who you tell the honest truth, who you're really, really honest with and have an emotional connection with. And these people need to know when you're going through something difficult. They need to know when you're suffering. You need to give them a copy of your crisis plan, because if they need to send out alarms and signals, if you go off the radar and you are being held captive or being denied access to communication, they need to know where you are and who they can contact, and also be able to notify the authorities in that country so that they can come and find you, so that we can come and give you help where you are. So this is something that's really important, guys. I know that a lot of the times it's a difficult topic to talk about, but it's a reality. Understand that there are people out there who are just who terrible. You know, in Africa, how in Africa we have, when we think about mental illness, we think about that, that person who's running down the road naked and they're dirty and, they're talking to themselves, or they're dancing and having a good time with the voices in their head. That's our idea of mental health problems in Africa, psychosis. Okay. But the problem is, psychosis, it only hurts the person who's suffering. Most of the time, people who are around them, they don't have a problem. But with the majority of personality disorders, which you will find in Western countries, They are narcissists. They are um, antisocial people. They are sociopaths, people who just get pleasure out of hurting or manipulating or causing pain to other people. And that's why it's so important to be aware that not everything is sunshine and roses in Europe. Not everybody who smiles at you is your friend. Not everybody who offers you a helping hand is actually helping you. And that's why it's so important, guys, for us to go back to that point of vulnerability. Never, ever put yourself in a position where you are desperate, where you are vulnerable, where you have no help, where you are isolated, because then you are easy prey. It's very important not to put yourself in this position, guys. And how do you prevent it? Make sure your visa is the right one. Make sure your documentation is right. Make sure that you have connections. You're creating connections where you're going, but you're also connected to the people that you left behind because they can help you. Make sure that you know exactly what your long-term plan is, your long-term goals, how you're going to get there. Please don't just get up and go. Don't just get up and migrate. It's a new era, guys. This is 2021. We're no longer just getting up and going. We're migrating. When we get up, when we're migrating as educated and intelligent African people, and we're migrating to thrive. We're not just going there just to say, okay, so whatever happens as long as I'm in Europe. No, that's not the point. So make sure that you are not vulnerable. This is the very, very starting point of it. But how do you know? Let's say you are already here. Let's say you are already in this situation. How do you know whether this warrants for trafficking or this warrants not for trafficking, but it's something of concern? Right. This is because I know that there are people who experience trafficking without actually realizing that this is a problem. If you've ever heard of Stockholm syndrome, or if you've ever heard of um, idolizing people who idolize their captors and their abusers, this is where it is. Because, and that's why I was telling you guys about mental health problems, because most of the time people are not, it doesn't start with abuse. It starts with um, help. It starts with an offer to help. It starts with creating a relationship. Understand that unless you're kidnapped off the streets, which 90% of the time is not the case, unless you're kidnapped off the streets, your abusers or the traffickers will usually lure you in with gifts, with talking, with friendship, with relationships, with stories, with promises, okay? And it grows, okay? So it keeps on growing and it festers. This relationship starts to get darker and darker and it festers. And then comes the manipulation, and then comes the abuse, and then suddenly you are trapped and you don't know where to go. Now, how do you recognize that this is actually trafficking? Number one, most importantly, if somebody says, you have to give me your identity documents, give me your passport, I will hold your passport for you, I will make sure that it's safe, I will take your passport and make sure that you don't lose it. Ding, 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 alarm bells. Your passport is not even your piece of property, by the way. Your passport belongs to the government of the country of which it was issued, of the country of which you're a citizen. Nobody is allowed to hold your passport except the person whose name is in that passport. I will repeat. The only person allowed to hold your identity documents, your passport, is the person whose name is on the identity documents. So from the moment that somebody says, okay, welcome, this is your new place to stay, I need your passport. Refuse. Refuse. And explain to them this, that legally nobody is allowed to hold this passport. And if they hold the passport, it's already an illegal offense, because you can even call the police and tell them that somebody is refusing with my passport, and that's a problem, and they get into trouble. So nobody is allowed to hold your passport. If somebody is holding your passport, understand that you are not safe. You need to get your documents, and you need your freedom. Okay. Number two, the difference between respect and fear. And this one is for those who are working, those who come as helpers, as nannies, as au pairs, as laborers. If you feel afraid of your boss, if you feel you have to perform the duties the way they ask, if you feel you have to work 17 hours straight because otherwise there is a physical or an emotional punishment attached, then ding, 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 your bells should go off. Understand that in the Western world, the maximum number of hours, depending on the country that you're in, the maximum number of hours that somebody can work is 40 hours. And I'm talking about Europe in particular, because I know about Europe. 40 hours a week, and you're even working 2 hours overtime. Do you understand? So if you are working more than 40 hours a week, earning less than minimum wage, then you are being trafficked. You are being exploited. That's an alarm bell. You are entitled to breaks, you're entitled to time off, and you're entitled to a healthy work and free time rhythm balance, okay? This is in particular also for au pairs. And that's why I said au pairs are the most vulnerable. I don't want to lie to you guys. Au pairs, they break my heart, because it's most of the time when they take African au pairs, it's sometimes people who are sure to manipulate them, people who are sure to exploit them. And yes, there are some great stories out there, but I think the majority of stories are of manipulation, and it's painful. So if you are an au pair, you are allowed to work, I think, maximum of 4 hours a day, 4 or 5 hours a day. Make sure that your host family is sticking to those hours. Anything over is not legal anymore. You should be able to talk to these people. You should be able to explain to them in the same way that this is a breach of my contract. And if it's not acceptable, and the threats start coming out, and the emotional and physical abuse starts coming out, ting, 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 you are being trafficked. Freedom. That's another important one. That's another big sign to tell you whether you're being trafficked or not. The right to freedom is an international human right, okay? So you have the right to say, I'm taking a walk. I want to be alone. I'm going to go to the city center and walk around, okay? As an adult, your life is your own responsibility. If you find yourself that, whether it's in a partner relationship or as a laborer, you're no longer allowed to go outside alone. You're no longer allowed to go and talk to somebody or attend events or even have a conversation on the phone alone. Ting, 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 ting. You are being trafficked. You are in trouble. Understand that a lot of the time the manipulators, especially when it's in the sense of a relationship, they can be it can come off as, oh yeah, my guy is just really jealous, he's just really scared of losing me. But like I said before, um, there are a lot of narcissists, there are a lot of sociopaths, there are a lot of antisocial personalities out there, okay? And these are not, they're not always, they don't always start off as bitter relationships or painful relationships. They can start off as great relationships, but understand that these people have a knack for manipulation. It's a disorder, it's an illness that is documented, and that there are people who get therapy and help and medication for. Understand that you cannot heal them. You are not the one who has the powers to heal them. You're not Jesus Christ. You can't heal them. So if somebody is denying you your freedoms, denying you your personal space simply because you're in a relationship or you're working for them, then you are being trafficked. Um, if you are depressed, you're alone, you are isolated, you're not allowed to have friends, you have no privacy, you have no free time, you're forced to indulge in sex, you're forced to indulge with sex either for the person themselves that you are with or for external parties, then that one is a huge sign you're being trafficked. It's not what you think, it's not a relationship. So if you have any of these signs, if you're experiencing any of these things and you're watching this video, I think it's very important for you to find help. I will talk about an escape plan at the end, because especially when it comes to um, people who are trafficked into prostitution, those rings can be very violent. People who are trafficked and are young um, and alone, those people can be very violent. So it's very important that you prioritize your safety and create a plan. But I will talk about a plan at the end. Now I want to talk to those who have family. If you have a family member who you suspect is being trafficked, and how do you know? Remember, we talked about the crisis plan, right? We talked about creating a crisis plan. It's important to have networks of people that you know. It's important for there to be people that say, oh, when Mary goes quiet for 2 weeks, we need to look for her. Where is she? What's going on with her? What's wrong with her? Why isn't she talking to us? Why is she ignoring? Let's try the other number that she uses. Let's try different ways. Let's send somebody to go and find out where she is, what she's doing. Your location, have your location on your phone. And I know a lot of people are a little bit sensitive and paranoid about, oh, Big Brother is going to be watching me with my location. But if you have family, if you have a family member who you suspect of being trafficked, you need to make sure that their phone is traceable. Number one, make sure that they are trackable, they're traceable. If you notice that they are withdrawn, if you notice that their behaviors are completely off, and I mean, sometimes people go through things, but if you notice that suddenly, Mary's wearing bum shorts and, she's and crop tops on Instagram when she's never worn stuff like that, and particularly losing weight, particularly looking unhappy, even though there's a smile, you need to reach out honestly and try to talk to them and understand what's going on. Understand that also sometimes their abusers might be the ones who are in charge of the phone. They might be the ones who are interacting messages. But I would like to think that no matter who your relative is, if you have a close connection with them, you can kind of tell when you're texting them that, okay, this is not her. This is not her who's texting. And in that moment, you need to start sending out alarm bells. reach out to the networks. So that's one of the things that you need to do, which are very important, is create a network, guys. If your relative is lost here in Europe, reach out. Let's try and find them. If your relative just disappeared somewhere in Belgium or in Germany or in the Netherlands or in France, reach out. Let's try and find them. You can't find them anywhere, but maybe by word of mouth, simply by us being Zimbabweans, we can help each other, you know? So let's learn to create that community and stand up for each other. I know that there are people in the community, in the Zimbabwean diaspora community, who will willingly drive and go check. Could you, okay, give me the address and I will go and I will check. You need to reach out though, okay? Because sometimes it might be a matter of life and death. It might be a situation where you are saving somebody's life, um, and keeping them out of harm. It's a very heavy topic that we're talking to today, and it's very unfortunate that I have to deliver this without your interaction, but I felt like I need to tell you guys about this dark side of migration because it's a reality. There are estimates of 24 million people who are trafficked, living in traffic or being exploited sexually as laborers, unpaid slaves, uh, in the world. 24 million. That's shocking. And the saddest part for me is most of the time when the world talks about trafficking, they're talking about Russian girls, they're talking about Bulgarian girls, they're talking about Romanian girls, they're talking about girls in America, but they rarely ever talk about us as Africans. So it's time that we stand up and we start talking about these problems and finding solutions for each other. That's why I'm encouraging you guys. Create networks, guys. We need to create these networks so that we learn to help each other. We're our sisters keeper. That's how we grew up in Africa, you know? We grew up in communities where if my aunt saw me or my neighbor saw me falling, about to fall from a tree, they would get me out and then they would make sure they pulled my ear to tell me, don't do that again. Okay. And this is how we need to continue because we're Africans. This is our Ubuntu. This is our Hunu. This is how we are. So let's continue it, especially when it comes to trafficking. We need to protect our own. We need to make noise over our own because if you don't do it, if I don't do it, nobody is coming, guys. We are the help. Nobody is coming. So finally, no, before I finish this on victims, so here's something very important. I talked about the crisis plan. I created a crisis plan, which is for people who, before they leave, to know where they can find help. I've also created a signaling plan. A signaling plan is basically looking at the signals that of distress, identifying signals of distress in yourself or in somebody who you love. And the best thing to do is to create these signalings or to fill out a signaling plan before somebody leaves so that you have a comparison. So like I'm saying, if you know that Mary talks a lot and then suddenly Mary stops talking. She doesn't talk. It's already a signal for you. If you know that Mary is, a chubby with, a bubbly, and suddenly Mary is minus 25 kgs, then you know that something is wrong. You understand? So these are the things that are in a signaling plan. It's important for you in the signaling plan. You talk about what do I do? Who am I when I am happy, when I am fulfilled, when I am okay? How am I and who am I? In comparison to who am I when I am unhappy, when I am unfulfilled? And when it becomes easier for the people that you leave back home to identify, this is Mary when she's happy, this is Mary when she's not happy. Something is wrong, okay? Because she's now doing the things in her unhappy list, all right? So that's very important. We will also be publishing a blog, by the way, on this particular issue. I feel like it is super, super important, as well as giving you a free crisis plan and a free signaling plan on maryrazemba.com. Now I want to talk about the escape. Now, it's a life and death situation, guys. It can be very, very dangerous. Um, when somebody is trafficked. Sometimes it's not as serious. Sometimes it's very, very serious because some people employ abuse, some people employ manipulation, some people, beatings, chainings, bondage. That's one thing I forgot to talk about. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back because it just came to me. I forgot to talk about this. Financial bondage. If somebody says to you, I will fly you to Europe, um, I will pay for your tickets, I will pay for everything, I will give you a house to stay, but you will owe me 70,000 euros, which you have to pay me back. Ding, 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 ding. Trafficking. This is the biggest tactic that's used for Nigerian young women from Nigeria who are here in Africa, who are here in Europe, to traffic them from Africa to here. So people are buying them tickets, saying, okay, I'll bring you here, recruiting them, only to lock them up in a little room and prostitute them. It's not okay, guys. So these are some of the things that you need to look out for before you move. All right, we were going to talk about escape plan. I'm sorry, but I had to go back because that is so important. We're talking about an escape plan. It can be very, very dangerous, especially if there is physical abuse involved. Now, one major help that you need, and that's why the help from the outside is very necessary. It's so necessary that we build these networks, because if somebody is in danger, you are going to have to save them. You are going to have to intervene, okay? One thing that you can do is make sure that you are always in touch with somebody from the outside, or somebody at least knows where you live, what's your phone number, GPS location. Like I said, you need to have your GPS location. Somebody who has access to your um, to your um, to your phone, so that they can also look it up, if something, to your phone records, kind of like an indemnity in case of emergency. If something's happened, or I give this person the power to search my phone records in case this and this and this, I'm absent for this period of time. You need that. You need somebody on the outside, because if you can't help yourself, you're going to need people to come and help you. We've talked about uh, communities and networking. We need, as diasporans, as Africans, as African immigrants, to create communities, right? Where we know each other, where I know that there are 5 Zimbabweans in my area, and one lives here, one lives there, one lives there. And at least just check up on each other, or just create groups where we know each other somehow, and just check up on each other once in a while. Call somebody, let them know how you're doing. Honesty is very important. I know that a lot of times when people move to Europe, they're like, I can't talk about my problems. We've said this before. You're not allowed to, you feel like you're not allowed to talk about your problems. Now, suddenly, your problems become luxury problems because you're in Africa, but that's not the way, because you're in Europe. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. You need to be able to talk to somebody openly and honestly, so that somebody knows what's going on with you. If there are problems that you're experiencing, that person can intervene and help. Also, very important is to know the police. How do you contact the police in the area where you are? That's why I said language is very important, guys. Even if you know, for those who don't know, the inter-European emergency number is 112. And you can dial it from any European country, and you will be connected to the help services that are closest to you. They will ask you, is it a fire? Do you need the police? Do you need an ambulance? Or do you need a fire brigade? But like I said, the biggest challenge is language. So make sure that you know the language. Make sure that you know the the phone number for help, the police emergency number of the country that you're in. And for those that are watching from the outside, for those that are in Africa, make sure that you get this information. So which city is there? Are you going to stay? Where are you staying? What's the address where you stay? Tell me what's the closest city? Tell me the name of the closest hospital. Tell me the name of the closest police station, and have these numbers for your loved ones. Why? Because if one day something is not right, then you can always call the police in that country and say, please, can you go and check up on my sister? She's not answering. It's not like her. Signaling plan, remember? It's not like her. How can we get in touch with her? We're worried about her. Can you please just go and check? Okay? And the police here, most police in Europe, they will go and check and they will come back to you. So make sure that you have connections. The last thing I want to, not the last thing, but I want to emphasize is make a report. If you have experienced trafficking, if you have ever been in that position and you have escaped, guys, do the world a favor and report, because these predators are known to re-offend, to do it over and over and over and over again. Okay, so report so that they are punished, but also report to protect the next person. Like I said, they will talk about, Eastern Europeans or Western Europeans or, South Americans, but they won't talk about Africans. So you need to report. Brothers and sisters, I need you to go and report about human trafficking. You are not the perpetrator in this situation, and I understand that sometimes we're looking at protecting our stay and our circumstances. Then give it to somebody who does have legal residence to report. Ask somebody who is has a better standing in the society to report. But you need to report, raise the alarm, raise the fire, and let people know that this is happening. We need to report this, okay? We need to report. The world needs to know that this is what they're doing. Our ancestors were enslaved and prostituted and God knows what, but this is 2021. We need to be heard. And a big part of it is my responsibility, but it's also your responsibility. You need to report. Very important. Number 3, raise awareness. Let's talk about it, guys. Let's talk about it. Even in terms of testimonies, let's talk about it. By the way, I'm launching a podcast series and spaces on Twitter in January 2022 called #Diaspora Diaries, where we're having these honest conversations, because a lot of time people think that life in Europe is, like I said, you're plucking money from the trees, you're eating bacon and eggs every day and life is good, but life is not, it's not always the case. There's so many challenges that we experience as Black people, as African people, when we are here in Europe. So let's learn to talk about them. Let's raise awareness for these dangers that people might experience when they migrate. So let's be a little bit more honest, because with this information you can help to save a life. You can help to prevent somebody else from falling into trafficking, and you can help to prevent some families back home in Africa from losing their loved ones and losing them, in such a sad way, under such sad circumstances. But okay, this was it for today. This is it for today. All right. We've talked about human trafficking. I didn't go into depth into the different types of trafficking, but I've talked about the signs, and I reiterate, if you are in the European zone and you have, after this video, feel like your rights are being infringed upon, or you're a victim of trafficking, 112 is the number to call, or reach out and I will make the report for you. Okay, but we need to raise the awareness. All right. Guys, I've told you, your girl can talk. I've told you before. I've been talking for an hour by myself. All right, great. It's time for me to leave, but I'm so grateful. If you're watching this video, I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much. Go ahead to my YouTube channel, hit subscribe for more informational videos. Go ahead to Mary Razemba on all platforms and connect with me there, as well as going to my website at www.maryrazemba.com, and there you will find me. Subscribe to the website, and I will keep you updated with blogs, with information, with resources, but also I'm your hookup, I'm your consultant. Let's talk about it. If you want to migrate, come, let's talk. Step into my office and we will figure it out so that you can migrate safely and legally. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And I'll see you in the next episode of Diaspora Diaries. Bye.